5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is the Culture Clash.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Culture Clash Live. Of course, this is the show that brings you all the latest news and reviews in fandom, and especially right now with these special live episodes as we continue MandoWatch 2023. And we got a lot to talk about in this episode. We are going to be talking about Mandalorian. We're going to be talking a little Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of breaking news regarding Star Wars, including a trailer for Ahsoka, which means I can't do this show alone. There's just too much. So first and foremost, let me bring in my regular Culture Clash co-host. He is my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. His biggest claim to fame of late is being Employee of the Month at Music Town. It is the one and only Raider Nerd, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
What's going on? We caught that shoplifter finally, so yes. If you know, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. But you know what, Kevin? This is a big show. We got a lot to talk about. And a lot of it came up today. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I think we need you think we need another person?
Yes. We need someone, and we need someone who I've known a very, very long time.
Are you saying you dropped some catnip?
Don't get weird. Yeah. We have one of my oldest friends, Mr. Cat Ceder. What's going on, buddy?
I heard catnip. Where's the catnip? Give me some catnip. Give me. What's up, gentlemen?
Good to see you, brother.
It's good to see you, Cat. Welcome back. Kevin, I think first and foremost, we need to tell everybody, spoiler alert. We're going to be talking heavy not only about the latest episode of The Mandalorian, but we are going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons later in this, and we're going full spoiler into the world of Dungeons and Dragons because it was so much fun. Yeah. But Kevin, you know what? This is a big weekend. You do realize that, right? There's a lot going on. Obviously, Star Wars Celebration started today.
Yeah.
We've got Easter Sunday. It's Good Friday today.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But there's a day this weekend. It might be big. I think it might be bigger than Easter. It might even be bigger than Celebration. It might even be bigger than Christmas, because tomorrow, Kevin, is Rex Manning Day.
Rex Manning Day. Yes. Yes. And if you are a fan of a cult classic, Empire Records, Couch Potato Theater has got you covered. Tomorrow, Saturday, April 8th, we're going to be celebrating here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Couch Potato Theater of Empire Records will be released, but more importantly, we are celebrating Rex Manning Day. And if you know, you know.
and of course, we will be releasing that Couch Potato Theater not only in a podcast format, but if you go to our YouTube channel, where hopefully you're watching this live, too, we have got a special video Couch Potato Theater of Empire Records, where, Kevin, you were joined by quite the crew of Empire Records yourself.
Yeah, see if I can remember all of them. There was Lacey, obviously, of our Time Warp fame, and we had Alex Autry, and was Lee with us? I can't remember.
Yeah, Lee was with you, and then I think it's just mandatory somebody named Warren has to be on the podcast.
Warren, yes, that's right. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was great. Kat, I got to ask you before we move on. Empire Records, are you a fan?
Love it. Love that movie. I think one of the best soundtracks of its generation. I actually own the soundtrack for that movie. So
we had a good discussion about the soundtrack. So yeah, good point on that one. You know, but that just want to mention too real quick about that podcast that's dropping tomorrow for Empire Records, and of course celebrating Rex Manning Day, was how cool the movie did of kind of showcasing what it was like, not only working but visiting and hanging out at record stores, which you could also say video stores as well. And it was really nice that there's a movie like that touches on that culture.
Can we throw in the local comic shop, because I did work at the local
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. And video store.
But you know what, guys? We got a huge show. I was excited as we are about Rex Manning Day, maybe the biggest holiday of the year. We have some major breaking news that came out today It's all Star Wars related, so let's get into a little fandom news. Kevin, you're more the world traveler. Isn't there something going on in another country today somewhere?
Yes, Star Wars Celebration Europe, aka Star Wars London, and it's happening right now as we speak, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we started getting a lot of news starting to drop because, of course, panels were happening as early as possible. And, we were getting it early, too, because they're 8 hours ahead of us, I believe. And so it was nice to kind of wake up to a lot of cool new Star Wars news. And before we get into that, I just want to give a shout out to my fellow Camtono carrying Wilro Hood group friends. They are doing a run this weekend in there. And the last time I was in Star Wars I was at a Star Wars celebration that was not in the United States, because of course I was the one last year in Anaheim. I did go to Star Wars Celebration London in 2016, and that was a very important event because that was the event that brought me to Ireland first and Scotland and meeting my now wife Erin before I went to Celebration. So Celebration London has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I would hope so. It is all about Erin. I mean, but Kevin, we had some huge breaking news hit today early on from Lucasfilm and that Star Wars Celebration. One of the things we've talked about for a while, Kevin, is the lack of movie news. We hear about all these directors, this project, that project.
Let's clarify. It's not lack of movie news. It's mention of movies that get canceled.
Yeah. You get a movie. They get a movie. Well, today we got some movie news that feels a little bit more solid, a little bit more like it's not quite the trash compactor floor underneath me where I can sink at any time. Lucasfilm announced 3 new movies to be coming out. First one directed by James Mangold, of course, of Logan fame and Indiana Jones: Dial of Destiny, which will be out here soon, Kevin. You've also got Dave Filoni directing a film, and of course, Academy Award and Emmy Award winning director Sharmeen. How do you pronounce that?
I think it's Sharmeen Obaid
Chinoy, who is also going to be doing a film. But here's where things get really interesting because, Kevin, we kind of got a Star Wars timeline a little bit here now to work off of, starting with the Dawn of the Jedi, followed by the Old Republic, then the High Republic, then the Fall of the Jedi, the Book of the Empire, the Age of Rebellion, the New Republic, Rise of the First Order, and the New Jedi Order. And these 3 films are each going to be taking place pretty far apart in these timelines. You have James Mangold, whose story is going to be taking place during the, I believe it's the Dawn of the Jedi, Kevin?
Yeah, the first Jedi that wield the Force set 25,000 years before the films.
Yeah. While Dave Filoni's film is going to focus on the New Republic, and not only that, something we've been speculating for a long time, and I know the What a Piece of Junk guys have been talking about, it will close out the interconnected stories told in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and other Disney Plus series, while Sharmeen's film will be set in the events of after the rise of Skywalker and feature Daisy Ridley back as Rey as she builds a new Jedi Order.
15 years after the rise of Skywalker date, yeah.
So, interesting here. Kat, I want to kind of get your thoughts. What do you think of these movie announcements? Is this something you can get behind and get excited for?
The first 2, absolutely. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not a fan of the Skywalker. I'm tired of Skywalker movies. Let's get away from Skywalker movies. But will I see it? Will it be great? It's Star Wars? Yes. To all 3. So I'm excited that they're doing it. I mean, more Star Wars, please. Yes.
Kevin, we've been screaming for return to the theaters for Star Wars for a while now. You see, it seemed like 3 pretty solid projects, all covering a pretty different era.
The question is, which one do we get first? That's what I'm curious about. I don't know if they clarified that in London or not. So, but yeah, the first 2 are the ones that excite me the most. We've been wanting a Tales of the Jedi type movie that takes place way back in the days of Jedi yore. And I'm glad that we're getting that, and I'm happy that James Mangold is going to be attached to that. And then, of course, this whole Mandoverse movie that has been rumored and fans have obviously been wanting it, and giving Dave Filoni a first shot at directing a live-action movie with all of these characters that we've been introduced in these Disney Plus series onto the big screen should be a lot of fun. I don't know which movie's coming first, but I kind of want to see that one first. That would be really cool.
I think that wouldn't surprise me that one was first, and then we didn't get James Mangold's film, followed up by Charmine's film. I got to ask you guys real quick before we move on to the next topic, though. Daisy Ridley is back. Are we a little surprised by this? It's I don't know. For a while I didn't think she'd ever come back to Star Wars after.
There was some rumors flying around that I do remember hearing about, but I took them with a grain of salt because of that particular reason. And I think that I think they really wanted to, court her, so to speak, in a role that she could definitely shine in. The big question too is who will return. It would be really nice to see other characters fleshed out a little bit more, like Finn. Finn should really have something interesting happen to him over the last 15 years. I don't know if that's going to happen, but Rey is, I think whether you're a fan of the sequel trilogies or not, most people believe that Rey was a good character and played well by Ridley, and she could definitely, helm and be the star of the main movie.
Yeah.
I ask you, Kat, what about you? Are you a little surprised that Daisy is returning to this fold for Star Wars?
I'm actually more surprised that they're making, again, continuing with the Skywalker name. I don't know why they don't just let this go. Let us move on. Like Kevin said, he's give us some old stuff. He's give us some stuff that we haven't seen. The Outer Rim, pre-Star Wars, pre-Jedi, pre-Sith, enough with the Skywalker. Let her just be Rey. Don't use Skywalker, don't use Palpatine. And she can definitely hold a movie. She did a great job in the 3 movies she was in. She's a wonderful actress. She puts everything into it. But, again, I'm just biased for that silly name that needs to be dropped. Finally.
The question, too, is are they just doing one film? Are they going to leave it open for more? Are they going to have her sign in her contract? We want to have you the option for more. That's going to be the big question there, because for her to come back for one film, whether it's, I guess successful or not will remain to be seen. But do they plan on a bigger picture with her story and her coming back and leaving the door open past the first film?
I bet you it's going to be open-ended. If it does, like you said, if it's really good, they'll bring her back. I have a feeling she will become the new, Yoda character to help the new generation, and then maybe again they'll move away from the whole Skywalker thing and start making more Star Wars movies, maybe one-shot movies, or maybe 3 parts, or even Disney Plus stuff using her now because she is now making a new movie. Maybe they'll do that now. Maybe break it off into Disney Plus feature film, Disney Plus feature film, and then slowly give us more of what we want to see. Also,
right.
Hey Adam, he just showed up.
Hello, Mr. Lethal Mullet. Welcome to the chat. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think each film is going to be a one-film thing, and then we'll kind of go from there. I think they've kind of learned their lesson on big trilogies for right now, so we'll go from there. But you know what? That wasn't even the biggest news coming out of Star Wars Celebration today, Mr. Right Soul. This was. We get our first trailer for Star Wars Ahsoka, and Kevin, I'm going to say it right now. This is the most excited I've been about Star Wars since we got the first trailer for the season 1 of The Mandalorian. This trailer was absolutely mind-blowing and phenomenal.
Yeah, this is a character that we've been wanting to see come to live action, and we got teased with that, of course, in The Mandalorian. And we've been, ever since the announcement of the series, been waiting to hear more and more about it. And there's been rumors about the casting and confirmation about the casting, and seeing these characters that come from the Rebels animated series come to live action is also a cool thing. But more importantly, the fact that Thrawn is going to be the big bad here, and seeing how he's going to be tied to the apparent heir to the Empire. So yeah,
can't wait.
Kat, what about you? What were your initial reactions to this trailer?
Lost Cat. My initial reactions were when I saw it the very first time. My first thought was, "Gee, I wonder what my friend Matt Clifton is doing right now when he sees this," because he's the biggest Ahsoka fan I know. I mean, he is. I mean, I love Ahsoka, but he's like, here's me, and he's like up here somewhere beyond measures. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, I saw everything. I want to know who everyone is, what it's going to be about, and I want to see Thrawn. I love Thrawn. I've always been a fan of his since the first books came out with him. When they showed him in the animated series, I'm like, oh my god, yes, please come to live action. And now we're gonna get him, and there he is.
Well, Cat, living in the same town as Mr. Clifton, I can probably attest to a mushroom cloud that formed in Florida early this morning. But I am so excited. Kevin, you're showing these images as we're talking. We have these characters who is, of course, voiced by the amazing David Tennant. We've got Ray Stevenson. There's some speculation on who his character might be. We have this character. Kevin, I was also excited about the mentioned heir to the Empire. Are we going to be tapping into that storyline a little bit and bringing that into Star Wars canon?
That's going to be really interesting. I heard fans saying, "Where's Rey?" Or not Rey, but where's Mara Jade? Is she maybe? Are they going to rewrite that character a little bit? Are we going to get introduced to that? Maybe Mara Jade is an Inquisitor. Who knows? Are we going to get someone like that? That would be interesting. So I don't know. I would hope that we get the Isla Miri. We need Thrawn to have his little force wielding go away buddy that's around his neck, because that is an awesome weapon against the Jedi, and I hope that something like that happens. And these other characters that are returning too, like here's a picture of Sabine and a hologram of
Ezra.
Ezra, yeah, the kid's name there, and the Lothcat. So cute. But yeah, it looks like we're getting some good stuff going on here, and I love Hera here too. This looks great.
Okay, come on, guys. Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing Hera was one of the worst kept unconfirmed secrets in the history of Star Wars.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it was kind of announced early on, though, wasn't it?
Well, it never was confirmed. It was just she was announced to be cast in Ahsoka, and everybody just was like, "Oh yeah, she's Hera."
Yeah. So, but I'm curious who the blonde girl is here with the Sith lightsaber here, and then of course Rey is this character here. Looking forward to that. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but
I wonder. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
That blonde is supposed to be a Sage Ventress.
I don't think so.
I mean, she's bald, but maybe that's maybe
no.
You never know.
Well, Asajj has an alien type face. This is a human with blonde hair. I think she's either another apprentice or something like that. That would be my guess. Be kind of curious to find that out. But it's all about this guy right here, Thrawn. Yes. I'm excited, man.
Oh yeah. Do we all know his real name? Everyone remember his real name?
Mithran
Naruto.
Yes.
All I know is that this is the tip of the iceberg for day one of Star Trek, or not Star Trek.
What?
I just watched Picard not that long ago. Star Wars Celebration. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out on Saturday, day 2. Oh yeah. This ties in a little bit somehow. Oh yeah, James Mangold. Well, Indiana Jones, The Dial of a Destiny, just for Mr. Reitzel. Are you getting excited, Kevin? Are you starting to get your Indiana Jones sense tingling here as we get a little closer to June?
Yes, especially since they dropped the new trailer this weekend as well. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I love the way it opens up too. He's just like napping in his lounge chair. Yeah, this looks a lot of fun. I love the new trailer. Mads Mikkelsen is in it. Of course, plays a Nazi, and stuff ties back to the Nazis because you know what? Indy hates those guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But while Star Wars Celebration is going on over on London, we've got some stuff stateside to talk about. So with a little transition. You know what? We started these Culture Clash Lives for one very particular reason. And that is because it is the return of MandoWatch. And as it is time to talk about the latest episode of The Mandalorian, which of course is, as we say, guns for hire. There's a lot of guns for hire in The Mandalorian these days.
This is true. This was an interesting episode, and we'll get into that, Kyle. But yeah, we are talking about guns for hire, and we need to probably get a little episode plot synopsis, wouldn't you say, here?
Yeah, I think we should, but we should also. I just want to take a quick minute too and let the people know. Not only will we be talking about Mandalorian here, don't forget to check out What a Piece of Junk, because those guys have been diving deep into the Mandalorian as well with their own unique take. But
definitely,
you want to give us a little plot synopsis, Mr. Reitzel?
Yes. Okay. So we are discussing Guns for Hire, Chapter 22. Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and Grogu set out for the idyllic planet of Plazir 15, where Bo-Katan's former army, now led by Axe Woes, have set themselves up as mercenaries. Before they can meet them, however, they are involuntarily diverted by the planet's rulers, Captain Bombardier and the Duchess, who ask for their help in neutralizing several repurposed but malfunctioning Imperial and Separatist droids. After stopping a rogue droid, Bo-Katan and Din follow its trail to the Resistor, a droid bar, and convinced its bartender and clientele to help them. They find out that the droids were sabotaged through nanodroids in the bar's maintenance fluid, which were covertly imported by Commissioner Hellgate. Great Scott! Head of the Planetary Security Office. See what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
Confronted, Hellgate reveals himself as a separatist before Bo-Katan knocks him out. The Duchess sentences a remorseful Hellgate to live in exile on the moon of Paraquat for a while. Granted an audience with the Mandalorian privateers, Bo-Katan challenges Woves to leadership and defeats him. To help her ascendance, Din admits his capture by the cyborg in the mines of Mandalore and his rescue by Bo-Katan, which rightfully bestows the Darksaber back to her.
And all is right within the Bo-Katan universe at the moment. But Kevin, I do have a quick question for you. Do you think that they prepared those droid drinks with Mr. Fusion?
You know, it's a good question depending on what year, but that would have been helpful, yes.
Yeah. So
I need your trash.
Yeah, exactly. But let's start with our instant reactions to this episode. Kat, you are our wonderful guest. So what were your first reactions to this episode of The Mandalorian?
I liked it. It was a good episode. It was a fun little episode. I've always been a fan of those old mystery murder, like whodunit kind of books and stories. So watching that, like, I felt like I was reading a book, like a Sherlock Holmes, like who did it, why did he do it, how did he do it, and then getting through it. And then of course the ending when Bo challenges for her right to lead the Mandalorians again was well done and a good thing. And of course the Darksaber, you can't help but love a chick with a bright black blade that cuts through everything except lightsabers. I mean, come on, hot.
That's true. Kevin, could it be the galaxies?
Excuse me?
I was gonna say, he's talking about gotta love a chick with a Darksaber. Could she be the galaxies? Chick with the Darksaber, among other things.
The galaxies?
Never mind. But I'm tired. The joke didn't make it. Inside joke didn't make it there. It's today. I got a week and a half of tax season left. I'm almost there. But Kevin, in all seriousness, what were your reactions to this episode? Because it's been interesting.
My first reactions was it was fun, and I like that. Mandalorian usually has a side quest of some sort, and whatever reason that Din does his side quest, it was nice to see Bo tag along and do this, because obviously they're, the main plot is the Mandalorians and unification of them, as the armor kind of gave a quest to Bo to do this. But they get sidetracked a little bit here because they have to do this task that we get from guest stars Jack Black and Lizzo. And what's funny is first I heard Jack Black's voice. I'm like, oh, that's going on the track. And it took me a minute to figure out who Lizzo was, and I figured it out. I like the little subplot with the droids because it kind of calls back, and it was definitely a callback to like the Clone Wars and several other aspects to the prequel trilogy, especially with the droids, the nanobots as well. And so, and also too, what the side quest is doing that I liked was that a lot of people don't maybe care for these that much. They kind of want more of a linear storytelling device. But what I like about these little side quests is that it's touching on the rest of the world, the galaxy building, so to speak, and seeing how the New Republic is dealing with the post-Empire situation. And if you go back to the last episode of The Pirate, you could argue that they're not handling it well, you know. But it's nice to see though what else is going on out there, and I like the look of this episode. But more importantly, I liked how this little side quest was sandwiched in between what, of course, is happening with Bo and Din, and what was going to happen with the Darksaber. What about yourself, Kyle?
I'm gonna be honest. This episode was a little bit of a mixed bag for me. There were some aspects of it I really liked, but there was a couple of aspects to it too that I felt like I think they took away from the episode more than they helped the episode. And I know we'll get into this a little bit more when we hit our topics, but I do feel like there was a little bit too much stunt casting in this episode, and I think it was a little distracting and maybe took away from some of the other aspects of this episode that they were trying to execute. I love everything that's going on with Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians. I even like the stuff with the droids and the callback to the Clone Wars and a little bit of CSI Mando, if you want to call it that. Some people are using that in different terms. I'm using it as a fun thing here, where they just did a little side quest on this. But I know there's a lot of interesting feelings going on about this episode. But for me, it was an episode that was there. Is it my favorite episode of The Mandalorian? No. Is it the worst episode of The Mandalorian? Not by a long shot. But it's one of those ones. It's like, okay, it happened. I'm more intrigued by from the results of the last 10 minutes of the episode than I am from what happened in the rest of the episode.
And we'll get into our three main topics, but this episode has been very divisive, and it's a lot of people can't stand this episode. A lot of people love this episode. Some people are like, yeah. But this one has gotten a lot of negative flack. We'll just kind of come out and say it right now, and we'll tackle that.
That we will, but let's talk about, speaking of things with this episode, Kevin, let's talk about the director and the cast, because this episode was loaded with names in this cast, and of course Bryce Dallas Howard giving her third spin around as a director in the Star Wars universe.
Technically, it's four if you think about it. The two in the previous Mandalorian, and then Book of Boba Fett, and then this one. Right? Am I remembering that right?
I thought it was one Mandalorian, one. No, you're right. It was two Mandalorian.
One in season one, the Heiress in season two, the Sanctuary season one, Heiress in season two, the return of the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, and now this one.
And I think a lot of people consider Bryce Dallas Howard one of the top breakouts directors of this group of directors that have handled things in Star Wars since Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have kind of taken over leading the direction on it. I mean, she's done some of my favorite episodes since we've started, especially that obviously the episode of Book of Boba Fett. She did it. A lot of people consider one of the best episodes of this Mandoverse that they've been developing, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely. We get Luke and Ahsoka in that one, if I remember correctly, and of course Din gets his new starfighter, and that's also where we get the very important decision of Grogu leaving his Jedi training to reunite with the Mandalorian.
What about you, Kat? What were your feelings on Bryce Dallas and what she's done for Star Wars, and some of your thoughts on the cast in this episode?
I'm not a person, unfortunately, that follows the names of directors and cast members and people like that like you guys are. I don't do a podcast all the time, so my knowledge is very limited in it. But for this episode, I thought she did a great job. I did love the Book of Boba Fett episode she did. But, I mean, everything I've been watching from what they've been doing, they're picking the right people to do the right things. They're picking the right directors to do it. And again, some may fall to the side and people are like, I don't like that. Some may go, oh, that was good, like Kevin said. I'm like, it's just a person hits their stride and does a great job, or they sort of flounder a little bit. I thought she did a good job. I liked everything she's done for the 4 episodes that I've seen that you guys mentioned the names. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that episode. I remember that episode too. I just don't remember names like you guys do.
Well, speaking of names, Kevin, this episode had a lot of names in it. Obviously, just in returning, we got Simon Casadenas as Axel Wolves, Mercedes Vernado, a.k.a. Sasha Banks, a.k.a. Mercedes Monet as Casca Reeves. But we also, of course, obviously, some huge names. We had Jack Black, we had Lizzo, we had Christopher Lloyd. A couple other interesting names in this, too. Christine Adams, who, if you're familiar with the DC show from the Arrowverse, Black Lightning, voiced the Corrin captain. Harry Holland, whose more famous brother kind of sticks to walls, Kevin. He voiced the Mon Calamari nobleman in this episode. So a lot of names in this episode. A lot of big people in this episode.
Yeah, now that's been one of the knocks in this episode was the stunt casting. And can we? I just want to clear something up. Everyone has been referring to these characters in this episode, and I'm going to talk about Lizzo. I'm going to talk about Jack Black, and of course,
Christopher Lloyd,
Doc Brown. Yes, these are not cameos, guys. These are not cameos. Stop saying cameos. These are guest starring roles. Cameo when someone comes in for a quick second and then they're out, or usually their cameos aren't even credited. So there are actual guest stars on this show. So just want to clarify that.
Got a question.
Cat.
Who is Lizzo? I don't know who she is.
She's a very famous artist, like a singer and performer and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she has I think it's a Netflix concert special out, and yeah, she's a very good singer too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, I want to ask you, because I mean, and I know we're going to talk about some other aspects of this. Do you feel that having this many big names in this episode was distracting in any way?
I could totally see the complaints behind that. You know what's funny though is I've watched enough shows though to where seeing these famous people pop up in your TV shows and stuff like that, and now that we've been teased with it, not teased, but it's been happening in Mandalorian. You know, we've had a lot of these stars come in, and then they reprise their roles and stuff, and I see having these many people can feel like it's stunt casting, and maybe because Jon Favreau knows them, or they mention that they're Star Wars fans or whatever, but I don't see the problem with that. As once I got over like who it was, my mind was right back into the plot and what they were saying and doing. It didn't bother me like it has with a lot of people. What about yourself?
I think for me, it would have been better if they would have maybe spread these guys out through other episodes and had them do different roles. To have them all in this one episode, I think almost felt a little bit overloaded, especially when you can consider some of some of the things that maybe people are not liking about this episode. I think it kind of can help contribute to that a little bit for me. I don't mind the appearances. I'll be honest with you. For me, it felt, especially in the Jack Black and Lizzo case, it just felt weird, and them being there, and I think being the characters that they were, just really took me out of place with this episode. And I don't know if it was necessarily entirely them also, but how these characters were written and how they were performed with the idea of what they were created as. But it just kind of really made me kind of take me out of the episode a little bit. But I would once they were off screen, I got back into it with the mystery and with what was going on with the Mandalorians and things like that. But when they would pop up on screen, it just felt like, okay, I'm not watching the same show.
Did it take you out a little bit, Kat?
Jack Black totally did.
Yeah.
I keep every time I see him, I think Tenacious D, and I'm like, is he gonna do a little thing? I'm like, when they did that little,
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd didn't faze me at all. I mean, it was like, oh, cool, Christopher Lloyd, and then his character was like, I totally went right back to the episode, not knowing who Lizzo was. She didn't faze me at all because he fazed me. Grogu just takes me out every time I see him. Isn't it the Mandalorian, not Grogu? But yeah, Christopher Lloyd, love him. He was great in everything I've ever seen him in, so he's just fun to watch.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. And of the three, for me, Kevin, Christopher Lloyd was probably the one who didn't take me out of it. He felt the one that felt like he was most fitting in.
Yeah.
I'll go back to I think it's interesting roles and how they played them, and I wonder how much of it was the actual role and the character they were playing as it was much the actor and actress who were playing them. Was it the role or was it more the fame of them? And I think that's where it's going to get.
I don't think it has anything to do with fame necessarily. That Jack Black kind of plays Jack Black. That's an issue that I think people have. And Lizzo is not an actor. She's a pop star. And I think that maybe if they had people that were a little more, I don't know, diverse in acting, maybe wouldn't have gotten the heat that this episode is getting now. But Jack Black can do flamboyant, and so I liked, especially his cape and everything. I was, like I said, and I think Kat said it too, once I got over that it was Jack Black, I was listening to what they were saying and what the plot was. So
I think that's fair, but I think we need to move on from the cast because, Kevin, I think you might have got some information from the Book of Mandalore.
True.
Well, what'd you find out of the Book of Mandalore this week?
The Book of Mandalore. So the planet Plaisir that they go to is pronounced like the French word plaisir for pleasure, which makes sense given the lifestyle of these citizens in the ruling class. I kind of got a Wall-E vibe too as well, because when you see how like the humans are living at the end of Wall-E, they're all like living in sloth and not walking around, and they're just dependent on all these electronics and whatever it was and being served. I was kind of getting that feeling, which I thought was interesting. The planet yes,
I was just gonna say, you're talking about Wall-E vibe. I actually got a very big Doctor Who vibe out of this city.
Are you talking about like the city itself?
Yeah, the city itself and how it was portrayed, and
Logan's Run as well.
Yeah.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, definitely. The planet Trask is mentioned, which features a large population of Quarren and Mon Calamari, and was featured in Mandalorian Chapter 11, The Heiress, also directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. At the very end of the episode, Bo-Katan is given back the Darksaber by Din. She ignites the saber and stands proudly wielding it in front of her new Mandalorian followers. This is almost an exact mirror of the scene from the Star Wars Rebels, in which Sabine Wren gave Bo the Darksaber, who then held it above her head in view of her followers. Director Bryce Dallas Howard's husband, Seth Gable, provided the voice of the droid bartender. That's pretty cool. And Carthon is the moon in which Miggs Mayfield, played by Bill Burr, was imprisoned until Din and Cara Dune recruited him for the dangerous mission in Season 2, episode The Believer. So that's where Christopher Lloyd's character is going to go, in either working on broken TIE fighter parts or breaking big rocks into smaller rocks.
Well, at least we know he's not going to be making Death Star parts.
This is true. Or a time machine. There you go. The episode features a nod to the legendary Count Dooku. Commissioner Hellgate, of course, Christopher Lloyd, is revealed to be a separatist who holds the ideals of Count Dooku in high regard. His rather strange plan appears to be a way of fighting against what he sees as another corrupt state. And what I like about this, guys, is that, we see Miggs Mayfield mention, Empire, Rebellion, it's all the same to these people. And that was a cool scene in how Christopher Lloyd didn't, like, to me, I don't consider that stunt casting, because he's an established actor. He's done different roles. Of course, we all know him most, of course, as Doc Brown. But by the way, he's really good in the 2020 film Nobody as the father. Check that out. It's awesome. But the fact that he was a sympathizer for I think Count Dooku was pretty cool, because a lot of systems that were following Count Dooku did for a particular reason, and I like how there's a carryover of that as well. So, and this is very cool. I love this little piece of trivia here. Lucasfilm sound editor Matthew Wood makes a brief cameo as the droid foreman trying to protect his battle droid assembly line from Din and Bo-Katan. Wood is one of the talented leads at Skywalker Sound, but you may know him best as the voice of General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith, as well as for playing Bib Fortuna in The Phantom Menace, The Mandalorian, and the Book of Boba Fett. But one thing, another additional trivia that's not in here that I know personally is that he is one of the long-standing alumni that still has worked at Lucasfilm the longest than most people that are employed there now, next to maybe, I guess, Dave Filoni. He has been there for a long time, and he has worked on sound throughout all of the Star Wars productions, and he has been a pivotal person in the world of Star Wars.
That is very cool and some very good knowledge from the Book of Mandalore. But with that, it's time to transition one more time as we get ready to talk about our main topics of this week's episode of The Mandalorian Guns for Hire. Now, Kevin, when we prepared this show, we had a very interesting talk about action.
Kyle, I'm having trouble hearing you real quick. You were cutting in and out there. Were you hearing him, Kat?
He was cutting out for me as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, I'm going to leave a picture of Grogu getting scratched on the head and purring just to calm people right now as the topic that we're going into. So go ahead and lead us off there, Kyle.
I don't know. This might not calm people because everybody was really jealous of this, probably, that because they want to hold Grogu and pet Grogu and make him purr. But no, what I was saying is that as you and I had a very interesting off-mic conversation yesterday as we were getting ready for this episode, talking about how split people are on this episode, and you found some very interesting reviews talking about this episode that kind of make a point about that.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to mention Lizzo is actually a big Star Wars fan, was introduced to Star Wars by her father, and she actually dressed up as Baby Yoda for Halloween. I believe it was last year or the year before. So I'm sure that she enjoyed this scene right here. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some IMDb negative reviews because I think it kind of sums up a majority of what people are saying about it. And then I do have a positive review from Variety. First of all, this episode currently has a low, well, you can consider it low, a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb rating here. But I did want to mention a couple of the reviews here that do let you know how people are thinking. Here is one where they give it a 5 out of 10. Mando has lost its way. The show has transformed out of all recognition. No longer is it the man with no name in space, but the man with no purpose in space. Ouch. Mando is undeniably the coolest sci-fi character Star Wars has dished up in a long time. The show has now been turned into the Rebels cartoon. Yes, you could argue that was its natural progression, but compared to what we got in season 1, it is really uninspired and predictable, childish storytelling. Although chapter 22 is fun, there is nothing here worth talking about. It was grade C level writing at best, much like the rest of season 3. I envision so much more for the show when we have the likes of Andor, which is such high quality with great characters with a true Star Wars aesthetic. I'm shocked Favreau and the crew did not capitalize on taking Mando in this direction instead. What a wasted opportunity. I'm pretty sure crowbarring in the Book of Boba Fett has not helped this show's maturity and has inadvertently sucked the life out of Favreau's creative flow. He is clearly spreading himself too thin, and it really shows. Better luck on Mando Season 4. This one is a complete dud. So that's one there, Kyle. Is there anything from this that you yourself can kind of take out of going, I get what they're saying?
Yeah, there actually is an interesting point here, and I think this is something that's kind of happening. He talks about how he wishes the show would have gone more of an Andor type direction. The show is never ever going to be in an Andor type direction. I think, though, too, there's something with this season that I think there's some influences on this that are keeping it more lighthearted and fun than even what the first and second season were, and I think that it's reflected in this. This season of Mandalorian definitely has a different vibe and feel than the first two. I'm not saying it's bad; it has different, and I think a lot of people are not adjusting well to this different vibe of Mando because I do think it's becoming part of a bigger universe, and I think there's a lot of people who just wanted their Mando to be isolated.
Good point, Kat. What are your thoughts on that negative review?
Like Kyle said, it's not an Andor show. It's not meant to be an Andor show. It's The Mandalorian. It's how Favreau and Filoni see it. Personally, I think they're doing a great job with it. They're keeping everything on course, and they're keeping a lot of their excuse me, a lot of their synergies. You know, this character from this episode with this character from this episode, and oh hey, it all tied up together now. Cool, great, and they're keeping everything very, fixed. I think they're doing a great job. I don't see this being Andor or anything other than Mandalorian. So someone says, "Oh, that's very like this," but no, it's not. It's very Mandalorian.
I think one of the biggest knocks that I'm seeing from fans with this particular episode, and they're kind of blanketing their feelings on this whole season so far, is that the Mandalorian Din has become a side character to his own TV series. And I think that's actually inaccurate, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But I did want to go one more negative review here. This is starting to become annoying. 6 out of 10, I give it. We're almost at the end of the season. I feel like we're wasting time. I gave the previous episode a pass because I thought it was this point things would pick you up, but I could not be more wrong. This episode is one of the slowest and most pointless this season. It's basically translate to pointless side quest to advance the plot. Not even Jack Black or Christopher Lloyd could save it. Every episode hits the exact same beat this season. Side quest, something important around Bo-Katan, the end. I have very little faith that the final episodes will deliver. Too many plot lines are almost on hold, so I fear things will either be rushed or end on a cliffhanger. At this point, I almost wish it ended with season 2. I don't think they will stop that. I don't think that they will top that on what they've been giving us this season. Thoughts on this here, Kyle, especially with how they said side quests, something important with Bo-Katan, and too many plot lines. We kind of touched on that last week with an article that we found of all of these plot lines that have not been sewn up yet. Are we expecting all of this to happen by the end of this season?
No, I'm not. And this is the other thing I thought about after we had our conversation, Kevin, was the aspect that I'm wondering if you're seeing something happen with Mandalorian that I think is happening with Marvel and with a few other things. And I'm starting to wonder if, in general, as a populace in fandom, are we getting tired of are we getting interconnectivity fatigue, where everything is tied in together and everything's running together, and we just want a show based off of this character we want to follow? I'm wondering if this is kind of maybe some people
are you saying here. Episodic television where you just have standalone adventures?
Stranger World. Oh, excuse me, I had a little frog in my throat there. Yeah, I'm really starting to wonder if we need to start looking at getting back to some episodic television here, because I understand. I think people are getting a little burned out of having to follow so much, and I think because these seasons are so short, Mandalorian this season is only 8 episodes. I really do believe that they are people's expectations. They want more of this, more of this, more of this, and they want the plot line to move faster because they know they only have such a finite number of episodes. And now I'll be waiting for Ahsoka to come out after this, and I'm wondering if that's making people impatient, and because they're not getting the story progression that they want, it's throwing them off. So when we have an episode like this, that is, in a way, it does feel like a filler episode. It's another side quest. We've had a lot of side quests this season. But it has key crucial points in it, as we're seeing right here at the end of the episode. But I think people's patience and people have lost the art of letting the story fold out because they're so panicked about the finite of how long these streaming service shows are for a season.
What do you think, Kat?
I'm just going to add to what Kyle said. I agree, and they just want that. But they also just want more of what Season 1 was. More Mandalorian doing his thing instead of all the side stuff they've been doing, like the Bo-Katan thing, which I like, personally. I think it's a great thing, but not everyone likes to see the side stuff. They want to just have Din get to where he needs to be, finish what he needs to do, and then go to the next season, Just give us a little more action, give us a little more of this, but cut back a little bit on the side quest stuff. There's only a few episodes left, and they got a lot of stuff they need to finish off.
My thoughts on the side quest is that they're world building. They're letting you know what's happening in the current world, and I think And yes, we've talked about this, Kyle, that because we didn't have the Ranger show, it's canceled, so they're having to kind of shoehorn some major plot lines of what's happening around the galaxy outside of the Mandoverse that eventually they're going to have to zero in on, especially with the larger threat that is apparently going to be Thrawn and the remnants of the Empire. But I think what the problem is, in my opinion, is that I think, and it's interesting, I kind of had a little bit of a awakening at the last episode when you and I were discussing this, Kyle, about how where Bo-Katan kind of fits in this. And that as fans, we were projecting what we wanted to see in so many different ways. And that especially when it comes to what the first season of Mandalorian was like, he was kind of doing his own little things and going off with Grogu and doing stuff. But as the world his world started to change, of course, getting introduced into the we wear our helmets Mandos and we don't wear our helmets Mandos, and the culture and the how the Mandalorians are split. Basically, they're not a unified group anymore, and that has a lot to do with supposed destruction of their home world and the Empire doing their damage, and of course, the Night of the Thousand Tears is lingering among everyone regarding that. And you got the Mandalorians that don't wear their helmets. They are obsessed with whoever has power has the darksaber. You got the Mandos who have their helmets. That is their own religion. That is their thing that they live by. And, they call each other their cults or their sects or whatever it is. So as we're learning about the world and we're learning about the Mandalorian, and Din is also learning as well. He's, he became trusting of a droid, and he's learning cultures, and he's doing this and he's doing that. The biggest decision that I thought was Grogu not wanting to become a Jedi, turning against that, wanting to live with his attachment to the person that saved him and is becoming a father figure to him. But I think the problem is that from the beginning of this, we all knew going into season 3 was that there was the Darksaber, there was Bo-Katan, and there was Din who had it. And that, especially since at the end of season 2, it was said plainly that the story of the Darksaber is more important than, owning it, basically, how you get it. Moff Gideon laid it right out there because he knew what was going through Bo's mind when Din defeated the Moff. And so we were all saying this. Oh, there's probably going to be a power struggle. What would happen if Bo went dark, and she, fought Din for it and there was a struggle. Well, we put all these projections of what we thought was going to happen. We weren't thinking we were going to get all these little side things going on and let you know what's happening in the outer rim or in the heart of the now New Republic at Coruscant, a little bit of the cloning stuff going on, a little bit of the droid stuff. We weren't expecting all that. And so now we're just like, we're basically not getting what we wanted and not letting the storytellers tell the story. And the other problem that I think fans are having, guys, is that there's this recency. We're taking each one of these episodes and judging everything just on these episodes, and you're not paying attention to what people are saying, little plot lines that are being carried over from episode to episode, and that we're forgetting a lot of this dialogue that happened before. Like, Kyle, remember when I went back to you last week and I said, do you remember in season or episode 1 or 2 when you saw Bo like being all depressed on her throne? It's not that she was just like being depressed. She was like trying to figure out what is her purpose in life. The fact that she meets Din again and she saves his life, and then she goes to the we keep our helmets on covert and has an awakening too with seeing the mythosaur and confesses this to the armorer. This gives her purpose, and this is part of her story as well. And everyone says, well, the Mandalorian is now a side character in his own story. He's in every episode guiding her and guiding each other. He was also the one that went in front of the whole covert there that has their masks or their helmets on, saying, This is what we should do. We need to help this guy. We have a possibility of living a different life. I'm sorry, that is not a guy who's sitting on the sideline of his own show. I think people are getting this stuff thrown out of whack because we're having another main character who is so crucial to the backstory of the Mandalorians, connected to royalty, and is such a popular character in the Clone Wars. And a lot of people that haven't watched the Clone Wars don't get this, and they think this is weird, which makes sense. But she is crucial to making the Mandalorians get together as one, as the armorer gave the quest to. So that's my kind of take on why people are having issues with this, and I get it. But I think there's a recency issue here. They're not going back and going, why did I see this scene here? Why was that dialogue set? Because they are piecing all the pieces together, because this is all going to have to come together, as we've just learned this weekend, guys. This is going to be a movie with all of these characters and all of this baggage behind them, and trying to work together for the bigger threat.
No, I think those are all very good points, Kevin. And I think the other aspect of this is just I think we're seeing a little bit of a generational thing in how we absorb our media, and I think there's some instant gratification with one generation, while people of our age and so are willing to let the story develop more and do these side quests and things like that, because that's what we're used to as well. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I'm not we only have 2 episodes less this season, so if you're expecting any major revelations, I think you better hold your breath on that, because I think this story is designed to be continuing, whether it's an Ahsoka, Mandalorian season 4, or maybe even a Book of Boba Fett season 2.
And I'm sorry, I just want to end off. I did have a positive review, and I did want to mention this is by Brady Langham from what was it, Variety or Esquire, excuse me. Goes on to say Bryce Dallas Howard cemented her place as the best director in the Mandalorian arsenal. And then she goes, Chapter 22 pulls off what every great episode of The Mandalorian does. It advances the larger story while telling a memorable, isolated story within said episode. Forget that. Howard knows that Star Wars at its very core is ridiculous fun and funny. And if there's anyone I'd like to see a big screen Star Wars car keys go to, it's Bryce Dallas Howard. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, a lot of people feel that way, but Kevin, you mentioned this when you were talking about how people are split. It's about the storyline, and obviously we have a pretty major event happening here as Bo-Katan gets control of the Darksaber, and that's topic number 2. Bo-Katan in control, and the Mando mercs. Bo gets all of the toys back in this episode, Kevin.
Now, this is another big complaint, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Kat, was that a lot of people liked this episode, but also didn't like the way it ended, because they wanted to see this big fight for the Darksaber. And they felt that the way that Din lost the Darksaber from that weird spider mechanical creature on Mandalore, and they made a point of showing that he lost the Darksaber, and they made a point of showing her grabbing it, using her little tether device to bring it to her and defeat this guy. You know, these guys who don't wear their helmet, it's all about the freaking Darksaber and who wins it and who controls it. And that is just as fanatical or religious zealot as the ones that they call cults that have to wear their helmets. I'm sorry, but it's true. If you wanted this big fight for the Darksaber, I see why you might be disappointed, but I liked how it was subtle, that we didn't get this fight for the Darksaber. It happened, and we can just, get to the point to why she deserves it. And she's also, not only does she deserve it, she's the true leader here. She's the one that helped do the plan for rescuing the kid from the big bat creature. She's also the one that organized the Navarro, let's get the pirates out of here. She is proving why she's the leader and why she's the key to this. And I don't know, Kat, were you disappointed how, I guess, the Darksaber was bequeathed back to her instead of this big fight, I guess, with Din and her? I don't know. What do you think?
Not at all, actually. I originally thought that season 3 would start off maybe a couple episodes and then she would challenge him for the Darksaber and just get it. But because I watched all of Rebels and I knew that she was going to get it from Sabine, and the way she got it, I figured it was going to be very simple. As soon as they showed him all tied up by that robot creature in that was episode 3, I think it was, or 4, 3 or 4, and she rescued him and saved him and used it and killed the creature that defeated him. So that creature would have had the Darksaber by proxy. She beat him, so she would have the saber by proxy. The fact that he just gave it to her and said, "You defeated the creature that defeated me. This is yours." I was like,
yeah,
perfect. Moving on. Let's go.
Was it anticlimactic for you, Kyle?
I don't want to say it was anticlimactic because I think they're still telling the story, but it was kind of set up for this, and they even did it when they did the recap, how they focused on this. So we knew. I think if you didn't know this is coming, you were being really blind.
Right.
But I think there's still more to this, to the Black Saber thing. I just want to know when they all merge, does it become this is the way of the Black Saber?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Saber.
it's to be perfectly honest with you guys, it's the chemistry between these two characters learning about each other's cultures when you think about it. And what I think a lot of people are missing about this episode was when they were on the side quest, whether you want to call it CSI droids, I don't know. I liked it. And as you alluded to earlier, Kat, I love it. Little detective stories. I love that type of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with it of showing that in Star Wars, that they're kind of like learning about each other while they're doing this. She's surprised that he can talk to Ugnaughts, yet she kind of puts him in this place saying, let me do the talking here. What, you don't have to do the iron fisted this and that. And she's like trying to be diplomatic about it. And he's learning, right? What's that?
She's the leader.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a give and take here between them that I think I find very fascinating. And, when she was surprised that Grogu shows up at her castle with just her, an R5 and the ship, and that, she's like, oh my, I got to go help this guy, and then that's kind of really where it started with her and her new quest and her new found of purpose. And I love that you see these the way that they're kind of talk. If you go back and listen to the dialogue between them while they're doing this kind of droid whodunit, what's going on here, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think too, just everything with Bo, what they've done is, and Kevin, you brought this point up to me too, was the maturity of Bo-Katan and how much she's even matured since we last saw her in Rebels too, and how she's handling situations. And I think that's one of the big things that's come out of this season of Mandalorian for me is the character growth of Bo-Katan, which makes it interesting because I think there's some possible subplots that they're going to get to later on that could really test that maturity. And I'm wondering too if there isn't a little bit of a curse of Bo-Katan where she comes into power but is destined to lose it through her own devices, because we've kind of seen that happen a couple of times now throughout her history.
I think that's behind us, and I think that's something that fans have been telegraphing from day one. They want her to turn evil temporarily and have her have this power Jedi go into the dark side thing, and I don't think that's happening. I think we're way beyond that right now. She's finding herself. She's finding her way, which is this is the way, and she's realizing that she now has a purpose, and that I think it was very crucial in the last episode of The Pirate when the armorer says, "Do you respect my station?" When armorer asked her to take off her helmet, and she says yes, and the armorer respects her enough. The armorer is seeing the light too, guys. She's also realizing that there's more to uniting the Mandalorians than just always having to have your helmet on, and that she realizes that she is the key because she proved herself. When I say she, I mean Bo, to the covert, the ones that keep their helmets on. Not only that she is willing to risk her life for them and their children, and doing the biggest honor of saving a foundling, that opened the eyes up to the armorer. And so now that we have this, and that she is the one that is going to unite these two here, I think is really being overshadowed by the easy, low-hanging fruit stuff that people are criticizing this season for and this recent episode.
I think that's fair. I think too. Just to clarify with my point, I don't think she's going to have a Breaking Bad moment. I'm just wondering if Bo-Katan isn't sometimes her own worst enemy, and let's see if she's matured past being that.
Oh, she has been. She has been, and I think this has been the Bo-Katan redemption tour, if you want to put it that way, or as we like to say, Kyle. Because I think she's learned from her mistakes. I don't know, Kat, did you follow the Clone Wars enough to know of her character arc, and Rebels and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think? Do you think that she's going to turn dark, or do you think she's learned?
She's learning from her past mistakes and learning from Din and learning from the armor and respecting, and then I think everything that people are saying about her becoming dark is just going to be not going to happen, and she's just learning her role and finally going to accept where she needs to be, and then uniting the Mandalorians and woohoo!
Yep.
And then has her own TV show.
Well, let's move on to topic 3, because this is a fun one, Kevin, because this is something that hasn't really entered the world of the Mandalorian, even though it's a Dave Filoni show and things like that. We haven't seen a heavy influence of Clone Wars show up in the Mandalorian. We've seen some Rebels, obviously, and things like that, but there's a lot of Clone Wars that pokes its head into this episode of the Mandalorian, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, the only thing that we've really gotten from throwback to the Clone Wars was the flashback to when Din, before he became a foundling, where he was being attacked by the super battle droids, basically. And that was it. And this is it. And that's what I love about this particular episode, is that we get a throwback and mention that these droids are now supposedly being repurposed for labor or what have you, and then stuff starts to go wrong. And I got a little bit of related trivia on this, so I think it's fun, is Din and Bo learned the battle droids were commissioned by the Techno Union. The Techno Union, see what I did there? Was a faction of separatists during the... I just got a face palm from Kat. Thank you very much. The Techno Union was a faction of separatists during the Clone Wars under the rule of Wat Tambor. It played a key role in the conflict, appearing in both Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 2. And also, the droid bar features many Easter eggs with a range of recognizable droids. Attentive viewers will spot protocol droids, astromechs, battle droids, gonk droids, and even the chef droid first seen in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Well, it's nice to know that they found a work release program for all these droids, Kevin.
Yes, but you know what? I just got to tell you, Din is not going to let you get away with it, because especially these B2 battle droids, he does not like them.
Not a fan. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Do you think Din? Let me ask you guys this. I was listening to another podcast, and Kat, I want your opinion on this. We know how he feels about droids, and I love how they reiterated that in this episode. But Bo is saying, well, they are programmed to be servant and blah blah blah. But do you think he was kind of a dick in this when it came to droids, Kat?
He is not a fan of those droids, so I think he's fully in his right mind to kick him in the can, literally.
Yeah. And here's a picture of the droid bar, by the way, which I loved. I thought that was great. So yeah, I guess the guy right there at the top there, that was voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard's husband there. So
when I saw this scene, the first thing that popped into my head was Mos Eisley when the R2 and 3PO walked into the cantina. Yeah. Like, hey, we don't serve their kind here.
I know. What if we got a robot version? We do not serve your kind here.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
2 on the nose. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I think this was fun. I think it was a great way to throw back and give to the droid some love. I mean, if you remember, we even had, back in the Clone Wars days, we had a droid trilogy series of episodes in Clone Wars. So Filoni has always liked to give the droids a little bit of love here, and he does so in this episode, and he has some fun with it. And let's be honest, in a galaxy far, far away, they're screwed without their droids.
Okay, I need to share something real quick. You just reminded me of something, Kyle. One of the most when we think about some of the most awesome fight scenes, battles in Star Wars, we can name some, right? You got your favorites. Mm-hmm. One of the most underrated fight scenes of all time in the droid or in the Clone Wars TV series is between these two right here.
Yeah.
Goldie and R2D2. Remember Goldie was Mr. Spy Droid, pretending to be all friendly, and then R2D2 is like, you boop, 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 boop. And then like R2 like totally like kicked his ass and and then he kind of came back and then R2 did it and won and became, the awesomeness there.
I got Kevin to play with his action figures on the show.
Well, wasn't that a great fight between these two droids? It was awesome.
Come on. We all know when it boils down to it, if R2 really wanted to assert his will, nobody would have survived.
Cat's still face palming me, by the way. Just want to mention that. Cat, your thought on the droids overall? I mean, was there anything that stood out with you with that whole kind of subplot there?
I like the droid. I like the whole thing about him. I thought it was fun, and I loved it when he dives through the window with the droid and tackled him to the ground. And it was just, it was a lot of fun to watch it. That picture you keep showing of Bo-Katan, I swear she looks like she should be ready to Gamora. Out in the galaxy. Like, is she green? Yeah. I noticed the lighting, but it looks like she.
I love the little police droids here too. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. And by the way, I don't know, Kyle. Let me ask you your opinion real quick. Yeah. I'm tired of that felt too real world. I heard someone say that the police line that was done with like holographic lines or lights or something was too real world, and I'm like, have you heard them talking? I mean, come on.
Some people just need to just roll with it.
Yeah.
You just need to learn to roll with it, man.
But
speaking of rolling, guys,
what? I saw what you did there.
Get your 20-sided ready because it's time for a little buy it, stream it, or unsee it. It's time to talk a little Dungeons and Dragons. Get your 20-sided die ready. Get your Dungeon Master. Get your character backstories ready because you're going
Kyle, check your audio there. You're going in and out there. Sorry.
Well, like I was saying, get your backstories ready, get your character creation ready, get your 20-sided die ready. Dungeons and Dragons. And guys, you know what? Before we get started talking about Honor Among Thieves, we have to go old school. Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Kat, do you have that book that you just showed me before we started recording? Can you show that? Hold on.
You want old school, Mr.
First of all, Kyle, show yours real quick, and then Kat, I'm going to ask you for yours. I want you to highlight that. Look at that. Dungeons and Dragons, all 27 episodes of the animated 80s series. That is awesome.
This is still a classic, and the animation holds up so incredibly well.
It does, actually, yeah. And Kat, what do you got there? Show us.
This is the original 1985 Temple of Elemental Evil module. Still in very nice condition and done by Mr. Gary Gygax. Probably one of the best modules ever made.
What does that smell like?
1985 paper mill.
Nice.
A little bit of chocolate.
Wait. But does anybody have the Ready Player One expansion?
Oh, yes. Ready Player One, yeah. Anyway, guys, what are we talking about?
We are talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm just going to... I did it when we had John Mosby on. We did it last week, but I'm going to say it again. I have been hyping this movie as going to be a fun-filled film for months now. I just did something about this. I knew it wasn't going to be the best of films, but it was going to be an absolute joy. And, guys, was I right? Kevin?
Absolutely.
Kevin?
Oh my God. Okay, so this I had a feeling it was going to be fun, and I wanted to exactly have that in a theater going experience. I just wanted to have fun, and they were doing a great job of showing that this movie's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy Chris Pine. There was a lot of hype on how good this was, and a lot of critics were enjoying it. And so I was very apprehensive because I remember the original D&D movie, and we've been wanting a good version of this for a while. I had an absolute blast. I'm not an expert in D&D like my co-host here, but I've played a little D&D. The first time I played D&D was with you, Kat.
It was.
And there's the famous story of killing a hippogriff, and I was very proud of that.
You went Ranger Mad and killed the hippogriff.
Yes, that was my first foray into actual like tabletop D&D before we started going into LARPing, live action role playing. But yeah, I understood enough of this to get a lot of the references, but not everything. And I'm sure you guys will go into that. But man, this movie is so much fun. And my favorite parts about this film was not only the characters and them working together and having this kind of heist adventure at the end of it, because I love me a heist, just like Avengers Endgame, the time heist. I love this. But I love the fact it was also shot on location. And there were some beautiful locations mixed with great sets, great costumes, and good special effects, in my opinion, as well. But you guys could probably speak more to the tribute to the actual role-playing game itself and the characters and creatures shown within.
Kat, I'm going to let you actually feel this one because it's actually been a bit since I played some Dungeons and Dragons. I love the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons, but I mean, from just my record, they did a phenomenal job of recognizing the classes and a lot of things within the world. But Kat, I know, have you seen it? How many times have you seen this now? You told me
4.
So I'm going to give the floor to you to talk about how well they handled bringing Dungeons and Dragons to life in this film.
They did an absolute amazing job. They brought all the geekiness that everyone wanted to see from all the creatures. They brought all the characters together. It was a great. How did we meet? And usually people, when they start a D&D game, it's like, oh, we were in a tavern, or we met in a tavern, or we met. They started it perfectly. Like an adventure would start, him telling his backstory, how he became what he was, then how he met his friends, and then escaping from the jail, and just everything was so good. And all the characters were great. For the movie version of it, it was really fun. Although the only downside I had is that the druid class, the one played by the tiefling with the horns, they can't turn into owlbears. But we accepted it because it was fun, and oh my god, she was such a great character. Simon learning how to actually attune to magic and showing who he is. And for those of you who don't know, his character is actually the only character that is created that is actually recognized as a related figure to an iconic character in D&D. He's actually, I believe it's the great-great or great-great-great-grandson of Elminster, because his last name is Simon Omar, and Elminster's Elminster Omar, for those who didn't know. But other than that, I mean, the Red Wizards were great, the special effects were phenomenal. Some of the throwbacks to, like, the old D&D movie with Marlon Wayans in it, which was terrible, by the way, to the whole smothering rug and sinking in the floor. If you want to see a great movie that's a lot of fun to watch and a lot of good laughs, I highly recommend this film. If you want to see a D&D movie, I highly recommend this film. If you want to see a good movie, I highly recommend this film.
Fun, and fun. That was this film.
Yeah.
This film is it's so much fun, including a great Easter egg to a throwback to the classic Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, where you actually see these characters. And I pointed this out to Kevin. I really wish this movie had a second stinger with those characters in it. I would have loved that. I would have loved to. Maybe I'm hoping maybe some way somehow it inspires somebody to say, hey, let's do another Dungeons and Dragons movie with these characters. But I mean, the cast makes this film. I mean, Chris Pine is Chris Pine at the top of his game. This is probably one of my favorite Michelle Rodriguez roles. I loved her in this. You got to see a little bit more of her fun side in this, and I thought she was great. But to me, the man who steals this movie is Reggie Jean Page as Zinc, because he just nails the paladin, and he's so honest, and you feel like he's smug, but he's not, and you just want to just not really like him because he feels like he's like that basic hero character that is psychologies. But there's just something about him, and especially the banter between him and Chris Pine's Edgin in this film is just so spot on and so hilarious, Kevin.
Absolutely. He portrays the iconic character of a paladin that you think in second edition way back in the 80s. I am this and I am this and I will not tolerate this and we're going to do it this way. It's like, okay, cool, we'll do that. Let's go. This guy's an idiot. I know. But
I heard someone say he was the perfect paladin. He was a jerk.
Yeah.
He was full of himself.
Yep, that's what a paladin really is. They're full of themselves. My only, going back to what you said about the D&D cartoon, I wish that instead of opening the box and finding an axe, they found a club
Yeah.
that he used instead of the axe. That would have been so. Oh my god!
Can you
Nerdgasm.
explain why that would have been cool?
In the cartoon, Bobby, that's the character's name, carries a club, not an axe. So when they open the chest and they pull out an axe, it's like, okay, cool, you got a weapon. But if you pull out a club, it would have been like iconic from the cartoon.
Gotcha. I wanted to mention that one of the things that is appealing about this film is you don't need to know anything about Dungeons and Dragons at all. I felt I was part of that audience going to it because I had some familiarity, of course, but the way that this story was told, especially brilliantly kind of giving us a backstory of Chris Pine's character at his hearing or his what do you call it? Appeal.
His appeal, basically.
His appeal.
Yeah. And then getting the backstory I thought was brilliant. And I think that was a great way to kind of set up the story and a little bit about the characters and his quest to obviously try to bring his wife back, but more importantly, definitely try to save his daughter. But what's funny, and I told Erin, my wife, I said, you should see this film. And Chris Pine is great. And that was kind of what sold her for it. But I did say one other thing that made it probably sealed the deal for it. And I'm just going to read her post on Facebook of what she said after she saw it. She says, D&D is fun, action-packed romp. What's not to like? From the witty dialogue, think game night, which the directors also did. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. Great visual and practical effects. Chris Pine is doing his best Jason Bateman. Winky. And Bridgerton's Rajon Page may have the least screen time, but he is effing oozes sex. That man is fire flame hot. There is definitely worse ways to spend just over 2 hours. I have never played the game, but it doesn't matter. Now, I want to mention the movie Game Night. Have you guys seen Game Night?
Oh, yeah. Love Game Night.
Okay. It's kind of getting this cult following a little bit further. It's gaining this cult momentum now because it didn't get a lot of play when it first came out. And I actually was still living in Atlanta, and Erin was there visiting me at the time before we got married. And we went to actually go see this. Wait, did we see it? No, I'm sorry. We saw it in Australia when I was visiting Australia because it was filmed in Atlanta, and I was recognizing a lot of the filming locations. But there's a lot of funny back and forth dialogue in this film, Kyle, that Game Night had. And my favorite scene in this film, I'm sorry, was the graveyard and the 5 questions with the corpses. Oh my God. That was so like back and forth, Jason Bateman-y, quibble, back and forth, and wait, was that a question? What?
Yes.
And excuse me, but you haven't asked your 5th question. It's just hilarious. I absolutely loved it. But the guys who directed this film were involved with that film, so I just had to throw that out there.
They also play.
Please
D&D
check out
too.
Game Night; it's hilarious.
They also play D&D as well.
Yes, yep. Mm-hmm.
All I have to say is, oh crap, I'm still alive.
I can't remember his name, but the co-director, he was actually one of the stars of Freaks and Geeks, and where they had also played Dungeons and Dragons, and he played one of the geeks in that. So yeah.
Kevin, I think we'd be remiss too if we didn't talk about with the cast, young Chloe Coleman, who's making a very big name for herself very rapidly.
Yes. You and I were discussing that we first noticed her in the Amazon series Upload, where she played the niece of the main character. And then she went on to do My Spy with David Bautista. She went on to do the daughter in Marry Me with Owen Wilson and J-Lo. And she's popping in all this stuff. And I feel like she's going to be a really big deal actress. She's getting all those daughter roles right now. As she gets a little bit older and gets more experience, she's going to probably getting some leading roles. She's absolutely amazing in this. And she's fun to watch.
Who is she?
The daughter.
Kira.
Okay.
She plays Kira, and yeah. No, I think she's going to be a star in the making, and I think this is going to be one of those films that we look back and go, "Oh yeah, that's where she kind of got started from." But
Yep.
This movie is just a ton of fun. It's a great way. It feels like it's Kevin to me. It's the movie that's kind of really kicking off. Maybe like this as we get ready for the summer season of movies here. Ant-Man kind of was. Creed 3 kind of got lost in the shuffle because of some other things that have happened here recently. So this one does feel like it kind of has that summer movie kickoff feel to it a little bit.
It's not just that, but I think, and one of the things that we like to touch on a lot, Kyle, when we either do Culture Clash or whatever, is the fun factor. And I think that's something that's what Maverick had. Maverick had fun factor. Yes, nostalgia for sure, but it was just fun. And I think getting people back into the theaters with not like a heavy topic, like I don't know if I'll ever see the movie The Whale. Congratulations to the Oscar win on that one, but I just can't get myself around seeing a topic like that's heavy. You know, I need fun in the theater. I need to lose myself. I need to eat that popcorn. And Kat, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, we used to go to the movies all the time because it was fun, you know. And with the movies that we bonded on were fun.
What was it, like every Friday, like every first or second Friday of the month for like 4 years while in high school?
Yeah. It was like going out and going on our skateboards, you know, going to RG's, getting burgers, and
Foster Freeze.
Foster Freeze, yeah, Foster Freeze, that's right, yeah.
I wanted to ask Kyle, what was your favorite scene of this movie?
I have a few. I love the whole when they go to get the helmet. I think it's visually stunning. I love the
This is in the caverns with the big chubby
in the Underdark,
dragon, yeah.
And I just love the dialogue between Chris Pine and Reggie's character. I think that was great, and I think it really carried on with it. Another scene I really liked was the scene where they're coming up with the plot to break into the vault, and they're using the wand with the portal and how that all plays out. I thought that was a lot of fun and a little bit of that D&D caper moment.
That was really so clever, especially when things went wrong and the mirror fell down and stuff like that. And
Plan D. What's Plan D? Plan C. What's Plan C? It's Plan A, but it doesn't stink on it.
Yeah, Kat, what were your favorite scenes?
I loved it all, but one of my favorite parts, besides the graveyard scene, which was freaking hilarious.
Oh my god!
Is when they're all skulking their way into the Underdark after going through the orifice, and they see the 3 intellect devourers, and the paladins like, "Oh, stop! Don't move!" And they all back up against the wall, and they're all standing in the 3 intellect devourers, sort of like walk by and stop, and they keep going. And Chris Pine's like, "Well, that was rather insulting," because those creatures in D&D are based off of eating intelligence. So it's saying that they didn't have any intelligence, so they didn't bother stopping.
I loved how the paladins spent like close to a minute describing the intricate details and how they were going to cross the bridge.
The bridge, yeah.
And then the wizard puts his foot on the thing and just like Plan A out the window. That was hilarious.
You know,
I think I go see the Small again.
One other thing about this movie too, Kevin, that I think kind of resonates. This movie has a heart to it.
Yeah.
When Chris Pine gives that speech about why he always has another plan and another plan and another plan and why he can't quit on these I think it's a really good heartfelt moment in this film, and I think it's something that resonates too. It makes this movie a fun action movie, but it makes it a date movie too.
You hit on something very important there, Kyle, is that it has heart. And it wasn't like a nasty film. Yes, we had the barbarian Michelle Rodriguez's character die, and then had Chris Pine's character having to make that decision. You know, I can only use this life-saving device once. What was that called, by the way?
The tablet.
They gave it a different name. It's the tablet of not resurrection. It was
okay.
Give me a second. I'll look it up.
But not using it on his wife as originally planned, but this person that has helped him and saved his life. And giving it to her, and that no one of the main characters died. Not even I'm sorry, what's his name?
Forge.
Hugh Grant's character.
Yeah, the Royal Forge.
Yeah, he didn't die, and I thought that was great. He lost his power, of course, but and I think this is good too, because if they do decide to revisit these characters in a sequel, where we'll get some more character development and some new characters, maybe I would welcome this. It was just a fun movie, and it hit so many chords in the right way.
That item is called the Tablet of Reawakening.
Tablet of Reawakening.
Yeah,
What
well,
was the? I'm sorry. What was the thing that they could wake up the dead and only ask 5 questions?
That's actually a spell. They actually just made it a magic item, but it's actually a spell.
Oh,
Speak
okay,
of Dead.
okay.
What I liked was the fact that he accepted the whole loss of his wife finally at the end and decided to resurrect Holga instead because she helped raise his daughter.
Yes,
He's actually more of a mother to his daughter than the actual mother.
Right, and the whole dragonfly thing was the whole thing that let that go because he tried to capture the dragonfly and kill it in the first time, and then every time he's thinking about his wife, you see a dragonfly fluttering around, and then finally at the end he's thinking about his wife and then thinking about her. Who do I save? The dragonfly lands on his arm. He looks at it and then it flies away. He's like, okay, I'm going to accept that you're gone. You don't actually know your daughter. I do love you, but this woman raised our daughter, so I'm going to bring her back.
The thing that we should spoil that we want to talk about too is this a cameo, or is this a character of Bradley Cooper as the former I guess partner of Michelle Rodriguez's character?
No, he's definitely a canonical character. He's in D&D lore now.
Yeah. Your thoughts on that, Kyle? I was not expecting that. That was great.
That is the magic of Bradley Cooper, is that he will just pop up in the most bizarre places when you least expect it. And this was one of those movies that's like, okay then, that was Bradley Cooper. Wasn't expecting that. And I love it. And I love the fact he does that kind of stuff. I mean, this is a guy who, when they made a spin-off of his movie Limitless, nobody expected him to be on the TV series, and he was on multiple episodes of the TV series. So yeah, that's the great thing about Bradley Cooper, and he knows how to have fun, and that's what I loved about this.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think we're all in universal agreement then that Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is a buy it.
Buy it. I want to see it in the theater again. Kat wants to see it for the 17th time.
I might see it tomorrow.
But we want to thank you guys all for listening to this episode. It's great when you guys join us for these Culture Class Lives, where we watch them later on. Of course, you can find the Fandom Podcast Network's YouTube channel on YouTube. If you're watching us now or are watching this later on, please remember to give us a like, subscribe, and share us out. Of course, you can find all of our podcasts on our main page at fpnet.podbean.com, and of course on all of your major podcast carriers, whether it's iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or so many others. Of course, too, you can visit our Facebook page, Fandom Podcast Network, where we try to keep you updated on all the latest news and reviews in fandom. You can email us directly at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram, Fandom Podcast Network, or on Twitter at FanPod Network. I am Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom. Kevin, when you're not waiting for Chancellor Jonathan to show up to your appeals meeting, where can people find you on social media?
I need those wings, baby. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Obviously, you can find me on Facebook and, of course, on the Fandom Podcast Network.
And Kat, thank you so much for joining us. We love having you on whenever we can have you. And I know this Dungeons and Dragons movie was a big one for you, so thank you so much for joining us. And where can people find you on social media?
I appreciate it. Facebook and Twitter at StaticCat1, and that's pretty much all I do for social media. So I'm a hermit. I'm gonna go hide under my rock.
Oh, do we need to ask him another question yet, Kevin?
I was just saying, I was riding my bike today, and I decided to go to this other beach, and it goes by our cemetery here in Santa Barbara. And I started thinking about if I could ask 5 questions from several of the people that are buried here, what would it be?
We are strange people here on the Culture Clash.
What's your favorite sandwich?
But we hope you've enjoyed us talking everything that is Star Wars Celebration with its first day and big day. Mandalorian Chapter 22, Guns for Hire, and of course Dungeons and Dragons. But we will be back next Friday to continue MandoWatch 2023 with Chapter 23 of The Mandalorian. Plus, I'm sure we can find a few other things to talk about. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit more news from Star Wars Celebration, and you never know what's going to pop up during the week. But Kat, I need you to do me a favor since you're kind of the dungeon master around here. Can you throw that 20-sided die and tell us if we hit high enough to get out of this podcast?
Let's see. Ooh. That's a natural one, my friend. We got another hour to go, I think, at least. No.
At least, or maybe 3.
Yeah. That was a bad critical roll. And we will just on that
the dice
note,
giveth and the dice taketh away.
Yeah, exactly. On that note, on behalf of myself, my co-host and co-founder Kevin Reitzel, our guest Cat Ceder, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. We don't do this without this. We can't do this without you guys. We can't do the show. I do want to do one last quick shout out, Kevin. Congratulations to our friends over at Chaotica Studios. They had a huge weekend with The Oath, their Batman fan film, winning all kinds of awards. Those guys deserve it. They put in so much hard work. We were so glad to be able to help them promote that. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, congratulations to Johnny and William and the whole crew there. And I think more are going to be coming for them. And Johnny, the director, is also working very hard on the Star Trek Farragut Forward Star Trek fan film, showing some great pictures of the Klingon bridge that those fans built. It is looking awesome.
Yeah, well, we love you guys. Congratulations. And with that, as always, as we like to say as we get out of here, remember, respect each other and enjoy your fandom.